Hey guys, you've joined us live on Moneycontrol. I'm Manisha Gupta, and today metal as a sector is in focus. And within that as well, we will look at copper prices, which have declined by nearly 6% for the month of August. If you look at this year until now, from the highs of January, which was nearly $9,400 a ton, we are trading at around 83 to 8,400, which is nearly 11 to 12% of a decline from those kind of levels there. Well, there are various factors which seem to be putting pressure on the prices. One is the global refined copper, where from the deficit in the previous year, we have turned it into a surplus of more than 200,000 tons in this year until now. And then when you look at the global copper production, that also seems to be increasing. So whether it's the mine production or the refined copper production, it's 2 to 7% of a jump up that we can see. China clearly is a major factor when it comes to copper, and last year 55% of all global copper consumption happened in China, but this year in the first 6 months we've seen nearly 12% of decline coming in for that one. But markets tell you this is a good opportunity buying. The October and September are known as strong demand months, and that's exactly what the street is really hinging on. And then it is about stimulus measures, demand from EVs, wires, all of that is expected to grow, and there is some support coming in from there as well. Joining us then to talk about all of those factors is Kunal Shah from Nirmal Bang. Kunal, hi, good to have you. Thank you for joining us on Moneycontrol. Well, it hasn't been a great month, the month of August for that matter, but where do you see the copper prices where they stand right now?
Okay, so yes, copper is a basically reflection of what is happening in China, and especially the China's real estate market, which has been sluggish from the start of the year, and as and when we've seen the data from last 3 to 4 months, they have been more grim than what it used to be in the first half of the year. So it is going to be very challenging from here for copper to really outperform. But we seem to be are in a zone where we can say that we've already seen the worst, mainly because of the fact that the way copper prices in India were trading at 880, 890, and it is right now at 730 and made a low of 690. So I'm of the view that from here the downside seems to be very limited. From the point of view of where we stand in the money supply globally, we are at that cusp, where the rate hikes are going to be paused at some point. We are at that cusp that the Bank of Japan is planning to print more. And at the same time, something is expected out of China, because we have not seen any meaningful action by the Chinese central bank or by the Chinese government in order to revive their sluggish economy. What they are doing, they have done nothing practically. So 10 years of rate hike slash cut in the property tax, I think that's not going to help. So we, going forward, if they come up with a full-fledged stimulus, then I think metals are going to rally, irrespective of what happens to the Chinese real estate market. For once, it will rally. And even if they do not come with a major stimulus package and they keep giving such small measures and small incentive, what they have been doing from last 2 months, even that will support the prices. It will not crash from here. 710 to 720 are the buying opportunity levels for copper. We do not foresee copper going back to 690 and breaking that and going below that, because from here, the directional view on the dollar index also seems to be on the downside. The possibility of Chinese stimulus will also start factoring in the prices. And if you see what is happening across the world, and especially in the emerging market like India, the demand for copper and other base metals are really surging very fast. So some of the demand loss, what we are observing in China, is going to be made up by country like India or the other developing countries in the world, where the consumption of copper is really rising at an alarming pace.
Kunal, I was reading a Citi report that came a couple of days ago, which says that they are looking at $15,000 a ton in sense of copper prices in next 3 years. And the reason why they say that is that they're expecting an exponential EV demand coming in. I mean, you talked about the near term, but when you take a slightly longer directional view, are you equally bullish?
Okay, so first regarding this EV demand, okay, it is there to stay. And this demand, when you talk about EV demand, I generally do the bifurcation, the demand from EV from the developed world and the demand from the EV from the emerging market. So I am of the view that the demand for the EV from the emerging market is going to remain subdued. But the demand for EV in the developed world, which is around 25%, 30% of the global population lives, that is in the developed world, and rest of the 65-70% is in the emerging market. So the demand from emerging market is not going to rise exponentially, but demand from developed world for the EV is going to rise exponentially, and that will be another booster for copper. The demand for copper in emerging market is going to come from the rising demand from the electrification, the infrastructure, the real estate sector. These are going to be the demand drivers for copper in emerging market. And EV demand, I mean, you see what's happening in Europe, or you see what is happening in the US, Japan. That's where the most of the EV demand is going to come from. But that accounts for the smaller portion of the global population. The broader population where emerging market lies, that's where the traditional demand of copper, which is used in real estate, in electrification, that demand is going to surge exponentially.
Just coming back from the conversation I also had with BHP and another couple of mines as well, they think that the projects which have been in works for last few years, that copper will start coming into the market in 2024, maybe 2025, but that is all that there is. And by 2026, many of these mines also get very, very bullish. So when you look at, this year and the next, and when you connect it to the kind of macros that you just spoke about, when it comes to interest rates and the US dollar index as well, are we then getting into perhaps a near-term consolidation, but a longer-term bullishness?
Yeah, so whenever we generally do the price assessment for any metals, any commodities, we have to see the monetary base of the central banks. And considering the kind of balance sheet expansion what we have seen, we are not going to see copper going back to $5,000. Forget it. Until we have a big recession or a big slowdown or a big depression scenario, we are not going back. We are not going to crash. So assuming that nothing like a black swan event takes place, I'm very confident that the downside from here is limited, and possibility of a sharp upside, considering the macros, considering the dollar index going down next year, or perhaps the rate hike cycle, reversing in the developed market, or even China coming up with a stimulus package to revive their real estate market or the other markets. These kind of scenario will cause a major explosion in the prices. Forget about the China's major project, but the other, like a correction in the dollar index and the possibility of rate cuts next year is very much there on the card. So the reason why copper prices are not going down is assuming that this kind of scenario are going to develop in next 3 to 6 months. And that's the reason why copper and the other metals are holding very well in spite of the Chinese problem. Okay. So I'm of the very strong view that next year or perhaps late this year, we will see the new bull run in metals should start. And perhaps this time, the demand growth drivers are not going to be from China, but the demand growth drivers will be from countries like India, Vietnam, Indonesia, Brazil, Argentina. These are the countries which are going to make up for the loss which is going to arise out of the slowdown in China. So watch out for India. Our copper consumption is going to sharply double in next 3 to 4 years, the way the demand is coming from India. So that's where the demand growth is coming, and supply side is not as strong as the demand side, and that is definitely going to cause a big spike in prices.
All right, that point is well taken, Kunal. Thank you so much for joining us. So the downside is limited, but the upside clearly not, and that demand clearly could be coming in from a lot of sectors. And as he said, very, very bullish on India as well. That is where we see a lot of demand coming in from Southeast Asia too.
How do world leaders view India?
I've long believed that the relationship between the United States and India is will be one of the defining relationships of the 21st century.
The bright spot of the global economy.
The growth rate for India, which is 6.8 in 2022. Let's not forget, this is one of the bright spots in the global economy right now, such a high growth rate.
The potential of India is enormous, and you have now a reformer, a radical reformer, who has the ability to transform it.
On the verge of a big transformation.
इस अमृत काल में हमारे संकल्पों की सिद्धि हमें आजादी के 100 वर्ष तक ले जाएगी.
A magnet for investment.
I'm actually incredibly excited about the future of India. I think India has more promise than any large country in the world.
The world is bullish on India. Moneycontrol is bullish on India. Join the campaign. Tweet to us with hashtag MC Bullish on India.